Jumping right back into the action here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, we have some reactions to do, some reacting to do to these Guardian caps that I'm sure maybe not a lot of people have known that are present in some of these NFL games, because it is honestly hard to tell in some games. Like, I know the Steelers right guard, James Daniels, wears it, and you can barely tell on him, but other times it is a little bit more obvious. And the Guardian caps have become more of an integral part of just life in the NFL for some of these players, because over the last few years, we've seen what we now know as Guardian caps be integrated more and more. I believe it was in 2022 where they became a mandate to wear for certain positions at practice, certainly, and that only grew since that time, and now almost everyone wears them at practice as well. And this year was the first time ever that the NFL decided to open up the option to have the players wear them in game if they decided to do so for that extra level of safety, right? Head injuries are a serious thing. The NFL wants to cut back on them, so why not let the players wear them in game? It also was connected to changing the kickoff format and whatnot, and all these questionable calls that referees make, because the safety in the NFL, the head safety especially, is huge. So they're letting them wear the Guardian caps now as well. And if you're unfamiliar with them, they're just basically like if you have your normal helmet, it's just like a little cover over them that has extra padding on it, so it absorbs more of the hit on impact, obviously, to not have such an impact on your direct head and brain and things like that. So it is hard to point out, right? Because in some players you can barely tell, but then I think it's funny when like a smaller receiver has it and they have a huge head. It looks like it's pretty funny, but it was a thing in the preseason as well. We talked about it on here, how Geno Smith mentioned that he might potentially wear one, but he doesn't. And there are other players as well that wore it in the preseason. I think Jonathan Taylor did, but I'm almost certain he doesn't in the games as well. And now that we're through basically the first quarter of the NFL season, the Athletic surveyed 109 players to get their feedback on some of the initial reactions from some players that wear the Guardian caps, or others that are still kind of in between on whether or not to do it. And so far, initially, we've seen that the majority of these players are still opposed to the idea of wearing the Guardian caps. Out of 109, 65 of them said that they were opposed to wearing the Guardian caps during the games. We had 31 respond in favor of the Guardian caps as well. And also we had 13 players that were still pretty much undecided as well for the remainder of the poll of the 109 players. So very favorably favoring the side of it against the Guardian caps. I think as expected, because from my thought point, the Guardian caps, it's a good idea in principle, but I don't know. I just think it looks so silly. I think it just looks so silly. It really doesn't look great. And also, I mean, it doesn't completely take it away. And, getting into some of the player feedbacks, which became pretty popular, in some of the objections that some of the players had, a lot of them said that it just adds extra weight to their helmets, and it could be discombobulating, right? If your head just weighs a little bit more, already more than it does with the helmet on your head, obviously, but that's what you've been used to all your life. And now if you're adding, I don't know how much they weigh, but if you're adding a little bit more, it could be a little off-putting, right? Trying to orientate your head. I don't know. I've never worn a Guardian cap or a helmet really that long in my life, so you can only imagine what it's like out there against, right, professionals at the highest level. The little things, the small details like this, I'm sure make such a difference for a lot of the players, rightly so in some cases, but that's one of the main concerns with them. Also, another player mentioned as unnecessary weight that they just don't need to wear, that they're opposed to wearing. And something else that was brought up was the idea that the Guardian caps come off or unclip very easily as well, and it could become annoying to try and like find it if it's on the ground or something like that and try to put it back on, or having to constantly readjust it as well. it's not something you want to think about when you're out there playing football, right? You have a million things going on, things that you could never imagine, right, outside of just the plays and trying to decide what the opposing side of the ball is trying to do, right? I'm sure there's a million, like trillion other things football players have to worry about without having to clip their guardian cap back on. So that's something else that didn't sit too well with some players that are opposed to it, but it wasn't all negative. There was some positive in what some players said. Linebacker for the Cleveland Browns, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, mentioned that he started wearing the Guardian caps after week 1, where he took a big hit, and it clearly affected him a little bit, to the point where he considered wearing the Guardian caps, and now he is one of the players that does wear it. So getting some people to switch over, I thought that was pretty positive in favor of the Guardian caps. Also, Patriots safety Jabril Peppers also mentioned how he likes how he doesn't really feel anything when he's hitting while having the Guardian cap on. So that's awesome for Jabril Peppers to not feel anything when he's hitting with the Guardian cap on. But he did say as a disclaimer that he will not wear it in hot weather. So it's nice that he plays in New England, I guess, to always wear that and have that extra layer of protection. And then there was those who want more protection from the guard, or they just want more protection. Some players want more protection, but not necessarily from the Guardian caps as well. I think that that's really it is just like a decider, right? Looking funny out there, having that extra weight, like I said, on there, and it's just something that a lot of players just obviously have never done in their life. Wearing this Guardian cap on their head, it could be very just off-putting. As silly as it may sound, and some people might think that it might not weigh anything, they're just being ridiculous. That, some players that are very traditional and very organized in what they do with the routines and things like that, especially football players, to wear this on Sundays now as a complete change for, their headspace is obviously you can kind of understand it as well, but it doesn't really have to do with the Guardian cap, this other positive, but the fact that the NFL is so proactive in trying to improve the player safety, the head safety as well for these players in the NFL. I thought another positive thing that came out of the Guardian caps and this sort of movement was the fact that the NFL also revealed 12 additional helmet design models that the NFL executive, Jeff Miller, said that in some of these cases, I think 6 out of the 12 new helmets that they created, he said, provided as much, if not more, protection than a different kind of helmet model, but with a Guardian cap, right? Some of these new helmet designs are just as safe as wearing a Guardian cap with another helmet design as it is just wearing this singular helmet, this new design. So I thought that the Guardian caps and almost like the players' willingness to not wear them kind of had the NFL up their efforts in trying to create a new helmet, and now we have something that's just as safe as wearing a Guardian cap with a different type of helmet. If you decide to wear 6 of these new helmets that have already been rated so highly that the NFL said that the players that have these 6 new helmets that are just as safe as wearing Guardian caps with other helmets, that if they wear one of these 6 new helmets, that players only have to wear this one helmet instead of having to wear the Guardian cap on top of it during practice. So that alone is going to be enough to get a lot of players on board with these new helmet designs. And that's something else that I think players are pretty meticulous about, is the certain type of feel and design on their helmet is huge. It seems silly, and watching on TV, it looks like all helmets are the same, but the fit and the shape and just the comfortability that players have with it is, they could definitely tell when it's not their helmet. I'm 100% sure of that. So now having this idea that 6 new helmets, it is a different design, so maybe they were a bit hesitant, but not wearing the Guardian cap, I think has put a lot of people over the edge now and wanting to try out these new designs, and I think that's great also for the NFL. The desire to wear the Guardian, or to not wear the Guardian cap, was so much that it led to, I'm sure, a lot of players trying out these new designs. So it's great. It increases the player safety, and those are just my overall thoughts on it. I certainly didn't like the look of it, obviously. I'll say that again. But I like the idea that players are aware of it, that some of them are willing to maybe look a little silly or just go out there and try something else new that they've never done before, but it's for their safety, so they're willing to try it. I think that's a great sign for this idea of more player safety, getting the players to buy into it a lot more is a great sign to see, because if there was nobody wearing it and still there was a lot of concussions happening in the NFL, I'm sure there still are, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. We're seeing more helmet designs now be safer, so that's always great. And, I think maybe if tight ends or offensive linemen wear them, I don't think that's such a big deal during the games. They're getting hit constantly. Maybe not as big of a force, but it happens more often, basically on every single play. So, those are just my quick thoughts on it for players that don't want to wear the Guardian cap now. It's great for them also to have these new helmet designs also, and maybe perhaps one day they continue to better these designs for helmets to kind of ease up on some of the unnecessary roughness calls, right? Because they've been pretty over the top with them so far. I'll say it again, the Minkah Fitzpatrick call, nuts. And I think it has to do with player safety, obviously, and trying to cut that down. Maybe it gets to a point where it's safe enough that they could ease up a little bit on these unnecessary roughness calls, right? Suspending Derwin James as well. It's not in a great place right now, and I think this could help trying to lower the intensity on the unnecessary roughness calls and things like that. But that's sort of another topic for another day. So we're going to leave it at that. And we have one more thing to talk about, just a recap here of some of the latest injury news heading into the weekend now, into week 5, and what are some developments in some of these injuries and whether or not we think some of these players like Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, Jonathan Taylor are going to be fit to play in week 5. We're going to break all of that down right after this next break. Don't go anywhere.